Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at a second submission by Natalia for horse Luna. Luna already shows much improvement over the first submission that we saw. The walk, just starting off, is much deeper, already starting to stretch deeper and getting a little better swing over her back most of the time. I'm really liking everything that you're doing. I love how when the horse comes up, you're just taking your time, getting back your contact and getting the horse back into the stretch. That's exactly what I want to see happen here. And that's really good there. Now this could be a little more active. See how kind of when she gets really low, she kind of stops moving behind a little bit. So that's where we want to, as soon as we get that, of course, we would just ask for a little more stretch. Because remember that getting the horse, a little more activity behind. Remember that getting the stretch is just the first part. Once we get the horse to stretch, then we have to get it. That's just a position that'll allow it to move more and swing more actively through. So you certainly could get a horse to stretch and just never develop anything because you didn't ask for enough to come through after you got the stretch. So once again, the stretch is just the first stage. It doesn't necessarily mean the horse is over the back. It just puts the horse in a position that allows it to begin to work over its back if it has never before. But this, once again, is really good. I love the stretch in this horse. It's just looking so much better than what we saw in the first video already. And how great it is to see people working on their own and just getting this job done, because you're really doing a wonderful job with her. I think you've already seen the changes in her, as you've said in your letter. And this is just the right thing to do. Obviously, this is a horse and she gets a little excited. You know, her go-to thing is to throw her head back up in the air, but it's really interesting how when she does that, you can kind of see how she gets agitated. Her mind doesn't know what to do. But as soon as she just stretches and once she finds that comfort place, which you're finding really well, she immediately just relaxes and everything just seems to chill out. And all of a sudden, it's like two different horses. They're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So there she is swinging just beautifully over her back. Walk is getting a little more regular now, but the swing is really good and you're really getting a good stretch. Once again, we always want to work for a bigger, more open swinging walk. So once we get this, then we just continuously ask for more. That is day by day, not continuously, so to speak. But that is, we're always asking for that little bigger walk. Remember, we can never get a walk too big. We can get it too quick. That is, the foot falls too fast, but we can never get it too big. We're always working to find that optimal swing across the horse's back. But really good, and I really like how you're doing this. Little leg yield here is good. Keeping the horse long in the frame, and look how she comes back to that. And you can almost see every time she comes back into that deep stretch how everything just relaxes. You can see her whole body relax. You can see her ears just become floppier. And as she reverts to her old habit, which is throwing her head up in the air, you can see the eyeballs kind of start rolling around in her head a little bit. You know, and it's just like confusing. And for her, I'm sure it is, but she's found the comfort zone, so she's going to keep wanting to seek it. We see many horses that are very, very nervous, and as soon as they go down the stretch, they just completely relax. So once again, that's what we want to have happen, and that's the reason for it. Once again, the reason it works is because when the horse goes into the stretch, it allows the rest of its body to work and function as nature intended. That is, it can lift its back up and get a regular gait and step regularly. So once again, horses that are held in the frame, that's why they're so difficult to keep rhythm, because, you know, basically you'd stop and go all the time. So we want most of our ride to be go, that is just flowing forward as you see this happening here. And if you make a little mistake, you just go right back into the stretch. So this is all really good work and showing much improvement. Now you can still see as she goes there by in silhouette, you can see her back is still just dropped a little bit there behind the saddle. So once again, these are the things you want to look at and keep noticing as we progress here. And of course, now that you have a saddle, I'm sure if you work with your Sleza fitter there, it's a great program because they come back and measure the horse. So, you know, they tell you whether the horse is gaining and it's developing in the right direction or is it not. Really good work here. And that's something that I would love to see veterinarians understand more of. You know, it's just too bad that so many veterinarians, because they don't really understand, amazingly enough, how the horse really functions, they're just so willing to give the horse all these injections and things, you know, instead of telling people if you just rode your horse more correctly, you wouldn't be running out of joint fluid. Once again, horses were able to get by and compete at very high levels before they ever invented all these joint injections. So it's amazing that almost every horse these days seems to need it. But yours is not going to if you continue to ride it the way you're doing here. Once again, this is really good in the stretch. As far as the contact you should have, we want the contact in the stretch to be just a light but positive contact, feel of the mouth. But it's never rigid. We never want to make our hands rigid against the mouth of the horse. They're always following so we can communicate with the horse. But once again, that can only happen if the horse gets over its back. Remember, in order for a horse to really relax its jaw and relax at the poll, it must be lifting through the back, which again is why we see so many horses forced against the hand today, is because they're hollow to start with, and then people are trying to set the neck. So they end up just breaking in the third and fourth vertebrae because they literally cannot flex and relax at the poll and relax the jaw and be anything but lifting through the back. It just doesn't work. So that should be your first indication when you get on a horse and you feel it hard in the mouth. The first indication it should be, well, what am I feeling underneath me? Is the horse hollow? In most cases, you'll find that they are. But it's amazing how sometimes we see horses that are so rigid in the mouth that you wouldn't believe they could ever lighten up. And as soon as they learn to stretch, I mean, the day, they instantly become relaxed and relax the jaw and the poll. So you're doing a really good job here of this. Every time she gets a little nervous, you're just putting her right back into the stretch, and that's exactly what you want to have happen. So another good leg yield there, taking your time with it. Once again, I don't see anything wrong with your position. Just remember to keep your heel down throughout all this. Try to begin all these exercises with the calf of your leg when you just want a horse to go sideways. And try to reserve your heel, for asking the horse to lift up. Now, there might be times that we ask the horse to go laterally and lift up at the same time. So once again, just know that that's another thing. Your legs can mean three different things. That is to go forward straight ahead, that is to go laterally, or to lift through the back. And that's when we get under the horse with our heel a little bit and give a little upwards pluck. And when we're getting horses to stretch, the better you get the feel of this, and I'm sure you're going to at the rate you're going here because you're doing a really good job, you're going to get the feel of how that works, So once again, good walk work going into the trot here. I like how you immediately are not trying to hold the horse's head down, but doing basically the same thing you did in the walk work rather, where that is let the horse find the contact and then begin to seek downwards like that. And once again, that's a perfect example. Look how different this horse looks when its head is way back up in the air like that, just like it was in the walk. All of a sudden it looked, when the head came up, it looked very irregular in the walk. And look how deep and stretched this is. This is really good work here that you've done. Big improvement over the last time I saw you. Really good work in the stretch there. That's excellent. And once again, what I was saying was, I really liked how you just didn't try to get the horse or hold the horse in the frame in the transitions. So always remember that, folks. Until the horse gets consistent in the bit in the walk, and then you can start the trot and get it consistently over its back. Then what you're going to find is all your transition problems will just disappear on their own. Whereas if you try to fight the horse's head into position, as I see so many people doing, or holding against their hands as the horse makes an upward transition, you can't but wonder why we see so many horses that are upside down and with their ears pinned back and swishing their tails. This is all really good work. Where you're getting this horse right here is really excellent and way better than I saw in the last tape. And once again, I like how when she does revert to her old little habit there, you just take a little contact. It's not going to be long before this horse even just forgets about that. You can see it even there. It's kind of like the old tape goes off in her head. She goes, oh, I need to put my head up in the air. But you can see as soon as she gets into this frame how much more relaxed she is. And once again, it's rhythmic. There's rhythm in what you do. Riding horses, when you look at people and they're constantly changing the rhythm, like watching a jumper who's always pulling the horse back as he's approaching fences, that it looks like they're going fast to people who don't know what they're looking at, but it always ends up that the horse that has the smoothest round is the fastest because they're not going backwards all the time. And that's how we want our flat riding to be as well. And you can just imagine, if you're a jumper rider, and once again, let me point out that I was a 3-day event rider and a 3-day event coach for many, many years here in California. So I spent a lot of time jumping. I have trained steeplechase horses. I've trained horses for fox hunting. I've trained them for the jumping ring as well as for 3-day eventing. So what there is really the very little difference between all of those things. It's just a matter of what frame you're in, whether you're in a big open frame galloping, but still when you're galloping, you want the horse over the back. That's the issue. Once again, when we see the great riders in the world in every horse sport, like even the great jockeys, these guys know how to get the horses to run over their backs. It makes all the difference in the world. It's the secret to everything in riding. I can't think of a single really great rider, that is, who had horses that lasted, not just somebody who was a flash in the pan and won a lot on a lot of different horses. But those who kept their horses down for a long time and won consistently on many different horses, and you'll notice that all those riders have their horses working over their backs once you learn to recognize it. So that was good. I like how you didn't make a big fight in that about the downwards transition. You know, you just let her slowly come back to the walk. Once again, it isn't going to be perfect in those transitions until we get her more perfect in the walk itself and in the trot itself. And then all the problems in the transitions will just disappear on their own. Pretty good leg yield here. Be careful to keep the horse a little straighter in the neck. Remember that we never want more bend in the neck than the middle of the body. So, and we always want the hands to go a little bit to the inside. That is, if you're leg yielding to the right, you want your hands to go a little bit to the left so that your horse feels the rein against the neck on the outside rein. So once again, a good strategy here going into the trot. You didn't try to hold her down. You just moved into it. You can see how this trot, you know, how this horse must have been in the past when she reverts to this kind of thing in her mind where she just wants to run and hollow and brace against the bridle. But look how she completely changes. This is such a perfect example of how completely different a horse can be and how it can change their whole mode. Look how she's starting to float over the ground. Now we're actually starting to get a little thrust off the ground, off the back legs. Once again, you're doing a good job of finding that optimal speed. Is where is the speed at which the horse has the deepest step with the slowest number of strides. That's what we're always looking for. That's the most efficient, right? The longest stride with the slowest step. So we cover the most ground, but with the least number of footfalls. So once again, really good. And once again, as she starts to try to get a little hollow on you, you're doing just the right thing. Just follow upwards with your hands and soften her. And watch how her whole attitude changes when she gets back into that frame. This is really a good object lesson here for people to see. It's how completely different. So you can imagine if you'd continue riding the horse, you know, or how even could you? You know, once again, as I always say, no one ever learns to ride like this and then goes back to riding holding against their hands, because once again, why would you? Because it's simply not a good way to ride. And certainly not riding the horse from the back to the front. Remember, this is what our goal in dressage, to get the horse over its back and to ride it from the back to the front. Well, that's what it means. If you're holding on the front end all the time, you're riding the front end of the horse. It's as simple as that. Once again, no matter how high the horse may lift its knees up, it's on the forehand if its back is hollow. What you'll notice with those horses that lift their knees up, you'll notice the hind legs don't come forward. That is, they don't swing on the same plane, but as your horse is doing now. And that's the point that we just never want to lose. As we go up and the horse begins to develop and pulls its shoulders up through the withers and develops a more uphill stance, which allows collection to happen. You know, we change the very structure of the horse. It will look very different, you know, a year and 2 years down the road than what it looks now. But that's really good. Right there is about optimal. That's a beautiful tempo in the trot. Absolutely lovely work today that you've done with this horse. A huge improvement. And you're going to see this horse improve even more and more and more. Once again, great job here. Every time she gets a little high, you just take a little soft contact. You don't let her avoid the contact, but you're not trying to pull her head down. That's the whole point. That's all it takes. You know, horses are very sensitive, and their mouths are very sensitive. I don't care. You know, you can show me what you could call the dullest horse in the world, and as soon as a fly lights on the side of its body, it twitches or flicks its tail, right? So, you know, it can feel very, very little pressure. So the biggest horses in the world can become very light if you ride them light. If you kick and hold against them all the time with your hands and your legs, every horse in the world is going to become dead, or it's going to go crazy, which is what happens to the hottest ones who can't stand to be ridden like that. Really nice job there. Once again, I love how you're just taking your time to get the horse back in the right frame. And that was really good downwards transition that time. She came nicely into it without hollowing, so that's what we're looking for. So that shows you already it's beginning to improve. And you can just see right there, this was a good shot, because you can see how she started to revert to, I'm going to throw my head and run, which must have been how she went in the past. Now she's found that as soon as you give her that release, she completely relaxes. So she's learned to seek it, even maybe in her own mind. She's not understanding why, but look what an immediate change it makes as soon as she stretches into the contact. It's like that. She gets a little uptight. Once again, as soon as she goes back down. And you can see how the stride, as soon as she throws that head up in there, just immediately the stride stops moving forward. Just going to remember that's what we're always looking for, is that biggest step, the slowest number of strides. So we cover the most ground efficiently, so to speak. Good little shoulder in there. Now, once again, it's good because you're just not forcing the horse's head down and you're getting the horse around her as it's going through the exercise. So that's what we look for. Now you can see how the horse actually started to bend there. Once again, always remember, it is pointless to be thinking about bending your horse from side to side if the horse can't lift its back. That's what allows bend to happen. I see so many people struggling and struggling trying to bend their stiff horses that can't bend because their backs are hollow. So once again, why we see so many horses Grand Prix today that don't bend at all. They look very straight in their bodies. And you'll notice that those same horses will have a very difficult time. The half pass is very telling because they'll look like they're hitting their legs together behind when they're trying to do half pass, as opposed to being able to step. Once again, that's what real collection allows to have happen once the horse is developed uphill and can really lower and step underneath its own body. So a horse that's hollow, when you go to do lateral movements, that's why you don't see Tennessee walkers or saddlebreds trying to do any kind of lateral movements in their, in their riding, because they wouldn't be able to do it. I grew up around Tennessee walkers and saddlebreds in Kentucky, and my father would always point them out and say, "You'd never make it to the next town on that one, riding like that." And we would observe these people, and it would just, their training would be running them up and down a barn aisle, turning around at the other end straight, and then trotting with all this rig connected to them in the opposite direction. You can just imagine if you tried to go out cross country like that, you'd fall on your head. So once again, a good little attempt at shoulder in there. I like what you're doing here in terms of just not getting the horse upset about your hands and just getting it back in contact. You're going to get quicker and quicker about this yourself. If anything, what I would say, there's times when you could just bring, when the horse's head comes up, you could lift your hands up along with it and just don't let it escape the contact, which you do a few times. So just know that that's a good option, because we don't want to just hold our hands down low and think that's going to get what we want, because some horses will just brace upwards. But you're doing a really good job with this, so I have no major problem with anything that you're doing. I like how you're just taking back the contact and getting back into that swinging walk again every time. That's just what you have to do. Once again, look at the concentration that it takes. Once again, how could you ever be bored riding like this? Because you have to be in tune with every step the horse is taking and be responding physically and through your mind, mentally. It happens so fast, there's no time to be thinking about anything else. Pretty good leg yield. And once again, what I'd like to see you start doing in your leg yield is bringing both hands away from the direction you're moving. So in that case, both hands should have moved to the right a little bit as you're moving to the left. Or that is, hands should have moved to the right as you're moving to the left. Once again, back in the trot here. And again, just the exact correct approach to it. You're not trying to force her head down. So once again, it doesn't matter where we start. That's kind of the wrong with the idea of people who want to use draw range and all these kind of things, because they kind of want to start finished. Well, it doesn't work that way, and when you draw range and just pull them, their horse doesn't get a chance to warm up, doesn't get the right set of muscles working. And by the way, anybody who does draw rein the horses, I highly recommend that you read Bert DeNemethy's book, who's the one who introduced our great, he was a great jumping coach who sort of began our team back in the day after World War II. And he was the one who introduced using these draw reins, but he would say you should never put them between the horse's front legs because they will overbend the neck, which is what he says over and over in his book. So when he used draw reins, he used them from the side of the horse, like right where the girth connects forward. So they didn't have quite a full, as much fulcrum effect against the mouth of the horse. Again, really nice. I like how you're not fighting the horse through these changes. That's exactly what you want to do. It's just not get in a fight with it. You change direction. If she comes a little high-headed, then you're just going to soften her in this direction. It's the way we often do that, just circle in one direction, get it right, and then try to make the change if the horse loses it during the change. Once again, until the horse really gets over its back, the change of direction is kind of difficult for them. They tend to want to lift up and they come out of whatever they're in till we get a little stronger over their back. They just don't want to lift their head up and lose the rhythm a little bit. Good job here. Same thing. I just love how your hands are just never fighting with the mouth of the horse. That's exactly what you want to do. You're letting your hands learn to keep contact with the mouth of the horse without backwards pressure all the time. In other words, without the brakes on. You don't want to drive your car with the brakes on. You certainly don't want to ride a horse with the brakes on. So once again, just those couple of things that I saw, just in your leg yields, remember to move the hands away from the direction you're going. Once again, if your leg yielding to the right, your rein should go a little bit to the left, so the horse moves into that contact with the outside rein. But you're doing a really good job with all that lateral work of beginning to get it working, so that's all good. That is, you're getting the horse to move the hindquarters off the rail, for instance, in your shoulder ends and leg yields, yet keeping the horse stretched at the same time. And that's exactly what we want to do. So this was a very, very good workout. I was really pleased with both of these days that you showed me here. It shows much improvement over what we saw before. The first day she was a little more consistent for whatever reason that may be. And that's very normal. Remember that as we're training horses, just like you and I, sometimes they sleep wrong or they get up on the wrong side of the bed, so to speak. And but remember, it's always where we finish. So no matter how the horse comes out, and one day she's going to come out and just do this perfectly, the next day probably not, maybe not. In which case, but it's where we end up, that we end up at the same place every day that's important. Pretty soon then the horse does come out and we'll get right into the stretch, as you see some of our horses doing very, very quickly and staying there because they like it. Because once again, it's how nature intended them to move. Another really good downwards transition there. That was really good. And once again, I just really like how you're doing everything. You're taking your time here. You're not trying to fight her head down. Because remember, you're learning this at the same time. So once again, we have to be a little forgiving. Will Faerber from Art to Ride, that was a great job. I look forward to your next submission. And do go back to the lunging a little more. That will help.